Just adjusting a wire here. There we go. All right. This is the page I'm working on tonight. It's actually page 14. There's another page in there. I misnumbered the thumbnails, but there's a lot going on. The alarm is sounding. We meet one of the plot points that becomes important later on. We've got a nice sequence of very simplified cartoon drawings here of the correlator punching the console. I'm missing the chat. There it is, popped up. And then this is the introduction of the Spongemen. So this is the first panel appearance of those characters. They're the correlator's little henchmen, and they have like this sponge on top of their heads that has these little arms that kind of pantomime what he's doing. They've got like big goofy eyes, and I just thought it was a funny way to do a sea sponge. I'm sure a more subtle cartoonist would use just like what it looks like on the bottom of the ocean, like a sponge. It's just like a tube. But if you were, I tried drawing that on top of someone's head, and it just looked like a Smurf hat. It's just weird and didn't work. So I had to come up with ways to make it funnier looking and a little bit more interesting, and kind of enhance the characters' ability to emote. I thought that would be a good visual gag, at least. But yeah, this sequence is a stationary camera where I'm trying to show with some motion and a lot of sound effects throughout. An alarm going off, which is you see on the first panel, which I actually pulled back when I worked on the final page. You'll see like I'm in tight, and at no point I thought there was a disconnected storytelling, like you couldn't see the alarm here. So I pull back, and I have Jana War and Colonel Feathers pointing at a screen that says alert on it, and you see the colors will match here and here. So that's the connection. Like the alert will be like red or magenta, and then it'll match right here, and then we'll see it again here, and then you see the punch, and then we have the correlator doing this pantomime, heavily animated, like punching over and over this little screen. And then the last panel is him just like looking tired and angry, exasperated. So, but I started the layout, the other day. I drew this one little face. Probably going to tweak the mouth here a little bit. I want it to be a little bit more arced like that. So that's what we're working on tonight. We're just working on pages. I'll show here's the finished one from last week. I got a new brush tip for my Kiritaki brush pen, so you can see how sharp those cuts are, those feathering bits. You can see how sharp those edges are and everything there. And then like down here in his shorts, you can see how sharp they are. That's from having a new brush. It makes a big difference sometimes. I'd been using that same brush tip for almost a year. And what you can do is you can soak it in water and just leave it in a bowl of warm water for a few days. And it'll actually bring it back some, so you can reuse it again. But yeah, you can see that's everybody. There's the spectacular spider crab tucked in right there. There's Professor Prawn, correlator. Hey Shane, thank you. Yeah, this will be, when I finish coloring it, this will be the thank you card that goes out to everybody that supported the Kickstarter. So you'll get it digitally, and I found a printer where I can get some printed real cheap, so I think I might get just some thank you cards printed. I think that's a classy thing to do. I like drawing characters that genuinely are happy and have fun sometimes. It can't all be doom and gloom. I'm going to put my our thumbnail up here so I can look at it while we're working. When I look at this page, I do acknowledge that it would probably work better as a two-page sequence, but I've reached a point where I have maxed out the number of pages that my printer will um, print for a saddle stitch comic book. So like the comic book that everyone's getting is like 50, 60 pages. So um, I can't add any more without changing the binding. And like one of the weird little quirks of Massachusetts is when you have a stapled comic, it counts as a periodical, but when you have a perfect bound comic, it becomes a book, and it falls under different taxes and different rules, and it becomes more. It's one of the reasons I was sticking with a saddle stitched comic book because, like, I hold like giant size books, page giants over at DC, even just annuals. I always loved finding annuals in dollar bins. I'm a big fan of those because you get more bang for your buck. Um, so you can just check in here and see that we're working on the book and keep plugging. I'm not gonna stop till it's done. So every week you're gonna be working on this stuff. I'll try not to do too much creator spoiler wise, but there's going to be times where you're going to see just pages. So I'll try to warn people. Hey Chad, I guess I don't know. I don't look at it that way, but I just try to. Chad says it's the man trying to keep creators down. I'm sure that there's someone who would take advantage of it on a far grander scale. I actually have to finish my year-end taxes still, so it is never ending, all the little small business paperwork. It's not just drawing comic books. And I don't know, I'm gonna look into. I did close my online store for the time being while I'm working on everyone's Kickstarter book and rewards and everything. Maybe we'll take a break next week and do one of the rewards. But I got so many pages to do. I get it, man. Trying to do that effective where he like turns his head real quick, so you're actually going to see like part of his face. And then like some lines. And then this is the correlator like looking down at the screen where this light will be. I don't know, today my drawings are a little bit more cartoony than on some other days, so maybe that'll end up with some nice facial expressions. But I hope everybody's having a nice evening. Thanks for popping in, hanging out on another Wednesday evening. Thanks to all the lurkers who don't comment and all the hardcores that come here every week and comment and everything else. So thanks for hanging out. Spent a lot of today working on a website, so it was like not a ton of drawing today. I did that announcement graphic when I took a little break in like 20 minutes. The one of the ladies whispering to each other. That was my lunch break. I don't know. I think people enjoy the quick drawings rather than like some sort of canned graphic over and over. Maybe I'm wrong. Shane asks, "Have I ever done a Perhapanauts piece for Todd and Craig?" Not yet. I actually owe Craig one for him doing that cover for me. So I was talking to him about it uh, maybe a month or two ago, and yeah, he wants me to do kind of the retro cover treatment that I'd done on some of those pinups I'd posted. I quite like their comic book per Happenauts. Todd, I don't get to see very often. I haven't been back to Baltimore. I know he's always at Baltimore, but I don't get to see Todd very often on the road. And I'm not going to be doing as many conventions this year as I did in 2023. 2023, I did conventions like crazy. That was the most I'd ever done, and it's just a lot of work. A lot of work. A lot of permits, a lot of bookings, a lot of hotels, a lot of flights. Hey, Gregory, thanks for popping in. Conan super fan. No Conan this week. I'm sorry. I'm sure once we get to doing some of the Kickstarter commissions and box doodles, there will be some Conans. So Jonathan says he likes the quick sketches for the announcements. So I do too. They are some work, but I like having those instead of just like I was doing those cover images where it was just a template that I would put the title in and stuff. I don't know. I thought those were boring. I got tired of seeing my stupid face on those pictures. Yeah, someone told me I should put my own picture out there more, but I don't know. I never felt like I was a in front of the camera kind of guy. That's why you just see my hands on these things. Like those videos of like Todd McFarlane and stuff at old Comic Cons where he's like standing in front of a crowd, and it's like sometimes you see what he's drawing, but most of the time it's just him talking. That's his personality. I don't think I'm that guy. Shane agrees with Jonathan on the quick sketches for the announcement graphics. That one I did today, I've been drawing on those grocery bags from when I moved. This town doesn't allow plastic bags, so and I used to reuse those plastic bags all the time for lunch bags and I don't know, just tons of stuff. And I didn't really have a use for the paper ones until I was like, they're made of paper. You could draw on those things. That's how quick I was on the uptick there. Oh yeah, absolutely, Gregory. When we get to doing commissions and stuff for in the Kickstarter batches, I'll be doing them on camera, and you know, that's no problem. I'm happy to do that. I've done that for a few people. There was one that was like an 11 by 17 that took me like four straight. None of the commissions that are going to come from the Kickstarter should take more than one or two live streams. I don't think. I would hope not, because then I would lose track of time on stuff. I want to get the book done, or at least mostly done, before I really do a ton of time on that one. As far as working on pages go, my year is getting pretty full. So I did a post in one of the TMNT fan groups, and they were like, post a cover that you have at home, and I just posted the Jenica cover that I had done for the New England Comics exclusive, and I had someone message me and ask me, "Hey, who did that cover?" I had to break the news to them that I had done that cover. I also received a very fastidious message from someone telling me their thoughts on the Undersea Hero Kickstarter and how it could be improved in the future. Um, I don't know how much I'll be incorporating into any future campaigns, to be honest. Just wanted to block those out a little bit. It helps me visualize where the breaks are and where things need to be if I just solid in those panel borders a little bit more. And then, I got to take a breath and then slow my brain down a little bit so that I'm not overdrawing or just making lines for the sake of making lines. The texture I chose for the correlators, like shoulder pad things, is a little tricky because it's kind of like braided. Um, so from some angles, it's actually quite hard to draw. Hey Desiree, good evening. The Red Sox had their fan fest night, and I feel like the Dodgers already won the World Series. That's how I'm feeling, baseball wise. That is. Trying to have this hand look like it's starting to close as a fist, where it's not like fully closed. So that's why you see like probably a little bit. Yeah, you'll see the bend in this finger, and this one will come in like this. Pinky will be tucked in like that, but I think we need to have just a little bit more open. I try to have asymmetrical eye shapes whenever possible because it's more dynamic for the expression. So, Patrick Flaherty's here. Hello, how are you? One of the luminaries, founders of the Boston Comics Roundtable. I don't know, pillars. Not sure how you would describe it, but I always associate you with Dan and everybody. Dan Mazer posted some beautiful pages of his graphic novel that he's working on. So if you aren't familiar with Dan's work, it's outstanding. Just looking for a needed eraser. Maybe it's in this bag. Oh, I got a big plastic eraser. There we go. Ugh. Oh, okay, Patrick. I thought I didn't know that. So a regular member contributor. I know Jay was at the second. Jay Kennedy was a founding member. He was at the second meeting, and I forget why he said he wasn't at the first, but he was at the second meeting. And Dan had subsequently correlated that story, so corroborated, whatever. Corroborated is the correct word. Pat says he found a quite a bargain at the library bookstore today. A guide to creating storyboards, even with a how-to DVD. Cool. You gonna start making some storyboards, or is that something you do on your own? I actually don't know. Maybe you draw storyboards. I always thought you were more of a writer, but now we've got two light sources here, so it's a little complicated that way. One light source is here, and then we have another one back here. So it's a little bit complicated how we have to light this thing. Where I think that this is going to be fairly strong. So like this, the nose is actually. Pat says he leaves the drawing to the pros. Yeah, I thought you were more just a writer. Yeah. But hey, people pick up that stuff sort of thing all the time. Like I always admire when people take, whether it's like learning a new language or just pick up a new hobby. Some of the angles of the correlator's face I haven't quite mastered yet. When it's mixed with certain expressions, it's tough. See, that was a mistake right there. I can go like that. Patrick asked, did you do much research in marine life for this work? The answer is yes, actually, like a lifetime. I worked at the Mariah Mitchell Aquarium on Nantucket for a period of time. I always have gone to um, aquariums. I was heavily into oceanography and marine biology. I almost went that direction professionally, but I changed my direction while I was in school. And but yeah, I've always had a massive fascination with the ocean. I've kept up to date with it and helped out with the marine mammal rescue team on Nantucket for some time in the summer. Um, yeah, I have always loved the ocean, and always watch Shark Week. I've read lots of books. Uh, I've watched lots of documentaries. The ocean is something that I am a big, big fan of, and I've always just enjoyed being near it, reading about it, the creatures in it. Um, I When I was at Mariah Mitchell, I helped out with some of the studies at one in particular, which was a survey study with Woods Hole Oceanographic. I helped out with putting together the Mariah Mitchell Field Guide with Jen and Inga, who were the directors of the aquarium at the time. I worked with 3 different directors there, the different years I was there. Um, yeah, so like the ocean has always been a thing that I've enjoyed. So studying, reading about, not just standing next to it and drinking a beer, so or coffee or having a hamburger or whatever. Um, Hello, Michael DeFonte is here. Another artist in the room, comic creator, author, published Muckety Muck. Always good to see people in here. Creative people. It's lovely. Have I had time to read any comics lately? I've read some. I've read some older ones. I've finished the Conans that. No, I have one left that Jonathan gave me. Um, he actually gave me a King Conan that Silvestri had drawn, and I got to tell you, that story was not good. That was not a good story. Um, and some of the Silvestri Conans are great. I actually have a page from one of them as he evolved and solidified his art. That was like his first big gig. But yeah, that was a rough one with like the tree that comes to life and stuff. Yeah. Patrick Flaherty, researchers living on the ocean floor since the 60s had to speak in squeaky voices from all the helium in the pod. Ezra asked, was the art good? It was pretty good. I would say that it was very young Silvestri. The storytelling was a little condensed, even for a book that was like the size of an annual. He was a kid when he drew that, so it was okay. It was not the art was not what made it not my favorite issue. But the thing is like there are other issues that he drew in that run, like some a little further down the line that are fantastic, just absolutely wonderful. Was it Roy Thomas was not the writer at the time? Zelensky, I don't remember, but the stories got better. And then King Conan was kind of inconsistent for me because there were so many issues where, like, when I read Conan, I don't really read it to read him talking about politics. Yeah, exactly. Desiree Silvestri was getting his footing. It was funny when I took the page that I gotten in a trade. I traded a piece of my art for the Silvestri Conan page at San Diego, and I went to his booth and had Mark sign it, and I talked to him for a couple minutes. And he refused to say anything in his King Conan work was good. He was just like, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a learning experience. I've gotten a lot better. Was basically the way he treated the conversation. But I did say, I enjoyed the work, from when he was younger and many of his subsequent works, especially his time on Wolverine. I actually liked his art on Wolverine more than his art on X-Men, personally. I know people hold that X-Men run in high regard where Dan Green did the inks. Um, and I met Dan on more than one occasion. Um, I don't know if I ever, I don't, yeah. I'll have to look back at some of those issues. My favorite issues from that run were like the Lenardi ones, because Rick has always been like just a storytelling inspiration to me with the way he picks his shots and moves his figures and like he does a wonderful blend of comic book illustrative cartooning to me that I just responded to. It was more of my, as I like to say, more my flavor of ice cream. Um, and he had P. Craig Russell inking some of the, if not all of his issues that he had drawn, and he's another one of my favorite artists. He did Kill Raven with Don McGregor, who made like a pass by comment on the last stream. I was like, Don, where you going? I saw Don at Rhode Island Comic Con. That was the last time I saw him. Yeah, Jonathan, I absolutely am enjoying them. I really like the Gil Kane issue, the Bruce Jones written Gil Kane issue. Even though Danny Bolnati is not my favorite inker over Kane, I thought it worked really well in that particular story. I thought they meshed well, and I thought it was a good story. Um, and I read a really nice early Dennis Cowan Power Man and Iron Fist. That was really good. Um, there was a gangster with like a laser eye, which was awesome. Pat says he sponsored a YouTube host on Patreon who looks at sword fights. I'm hoping he can give me some advice for fight scenes. That's some in-depth research there. I probably just would have watched some like Hong Kong cinema for some killer sword fight scene inspiration. Unless you're looking for like a specific type of sword fighting, whether it's European or just. I can't say I did a ton of like fight scene research because to me in comic books a lot of the times the fight scenes are the most boring part. Same thing in movies. Like I want a few cool visuals, I want it to progress the story, I want to see struggle, but like yeah, I mean that's one of my complaints about a lot of the big blockbuster movies is I'm just watching the same shots over and over again. um, Once in a while you get something really interesting, like in the Netflix Daredevil, the hallway scene. But what was that an homage to? Was it Ong Bak? It was a Hong Kong or Asian fight that they were the single shot. Was it Ip Man? I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched those movies. The Raid. There you go. Michael knew. There we go. Someone hit the morning radio applause button for Michael. Yay. Or homaging it. Homage. I've made my thoughts on homage covers pretty well known. I'm not the biggest fan, unless the artist does something really interesting with their style, or I do like it when the original artist of the cover does like a sequel or like a 10 seconds later, or I think that's fascinating. I do because it's like, or they do it from a different angle or perspective or whatever. Those I do enjoy because then they're actually changing or adding to what they had already done, and I find that interesting. Readdressing the material in some way. Jan. I will never get tired of drawing the cool hair. It's like the two-tone hair that's orange on the underside and purple on top. It's just such a fun design element to build scenes with and to do stuff with. It's just so cool. It's like a two-tone cape, like the shadow where on the underside it's red, but on the top it's black. That was the idea behind her hair was like, I want a cool dynamic thing that can be moving and have some no matter what, like it's always going to look cool. I have an idea for a scene on a future issue, and I'll just say it because it's going to be at least a year, and everybody will forget. Everyone will forget. No one will remember. Whenever book 2 happens, this is just her sitting on Undersea Hero's couch, um, eating ice cream and like watching TV and hanging out. And it's just a regular picture of it's a scene that occurs in people's lives all the time, like of just like someone hanging out at home, not doing anything spectacular, but just because she has the cool hair, it would still be like a cool looking scene. Like she'll be wearing like a big baggy t-shirt and you know, uh, slippers, probably slippers of some kind. I'm sure one thing that people will notice is that at times Colonel Feathers is a little taller in certain scenes. There's a gag that will explain that in the book. Like why that is. There's a purpose to that. It's not just me drawing him different heights in different situations. I will say no more because it's a pretty good joke, but if you've watched me on this stream, you've seen like him at different heights. Like he's usually like if you see him freestanding, like close to that, he's basically like up to her waist. That's his height. One of the things I also enjoy about doing the Undersea Hero stuff is just that it blends, like the design is to blend cartooning and illustrative approaches in the artwork. Like that's, people think that it's just by accident or I only draw this way or whatever. No, it's very intentional, the blend of the two things coming together. And at certain points, I can lean one way or the other, more illustrative or more cartooning, depending on the tone or the characters. So, Patrick asked if I'm going to try to get a table for Wicked Comic Con in August at the Westin. No, I will not be reaching out for a table. If they, I was there last year and it was not a great show for me. So I'm just going to take a year off and see what happens. I might pop in just to hang out. So if you have intentions of going, I'll let it be known if I'm in the area, just to go hang out. I'll be honest. I went to. There used to be a show in Attleboro that I used to set up at all the time, and it's since moved to Franklin, I believe. And Jonathan and I went last year, and I just had a great time just being there and goofing off. That doesn't mean I wouldn't try to set up there maybe once in the future, but I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying just going to some shows and being there instead of having to work the shows and do all the paperwork. Like, Patrick, there's tons of work that goes into not just the prep, but after the fact, you know. And I've got a lot of pages to finish. Undersea Hero is my breakfast and my dessert every day. Where's our vanishing point? It is, I think it's right here. Let me just get my horizon line, which is here. I have to bring this shoulder up in front of her face some. That way also it looks like she's a little disgusted, like she's raising that one shoulder, like, what's going on? What are you doing here? Push the acting a little bit. Colonel Feathers is just kind of like, what is this? He's a little more blunt, a little more. Gotta get his medals. Lindsay Denise sends a little emoji of some kind. I'll click on it. Maybe somebody knows what it is. I think it's just a hello. Yep. It's just a hello. Hello. There's a little step down. And if you remember in issue 0, or those preview pages that were on the Kickstarter, one of the things on the Correlator's vessel that I regret designing because it takes so much time, but it looks pretty cool, is the graded floors. So there will be a grate. Just black that out. On this floor that'll show a graded floor. Lindsay asks, how long have you been professional? How long have I been paid to draw things, or how long have I been drawing characters people have heard of? Because those are two different numbers of my life. I started drawing professionally, I would say, when I was 15. And that was when I was first being paid to make works. I did a strip in the town paper for a time. They were editorial cartoons. And giving an editorial cartoon to a teenager was, I guess, a decision that they thought was good. I did my best, but I was definitely not qualified, either as a writer or just as an experienced person, to give narrative value to the locale. When did I first start working on characters anybody had heard of? I think the first one that I worked on that anybody heard of was the Ninja Turtles cover, Animated Adventures for IDW. I think that was the first one where people were like, oh, he did a thing. Or the Tick. I started working on the Tick, and I worked on the Tick for like almost 10 years. So I did get an email from the folks at New England Comics, but I don't make any sort of assumptions that they'll change any of their publishing plans. So, but yeah, those were the first books that I did that people had heard of. So, obviously, I did a bunch of other stuff. You can look on my website or anywhere else, and there's like a list of different books I've worked on over the years. And Red Sonja, Conan, Elvira, that was a weird one. I worked with Buzz on that cover. Um, if people have ever worked, don't they know Buzz's work? He and I draw very differently, but and I adjusted my coloring technique to fit the direction he wanted to go in, and he said he was happy with it, and I actually know that Cassandra Peterson liked the cover, so um, that was a good one. Worked on a bunch of stuff for IDW for a stretch. Then like all the editors and folks that I worked with there, like moved on. Did stuff for Dynamite. Yeah, I did one Batman TMNT cover. Did a GI Joe cover, and now I'm drawing my own stuff. This is my own book, my own characters. It was on Kickstarter end of last year, and yeah, now we got to finish the book and deliver it to people. So that's what we're doing. We lost our connection. Can you still hear me? Is that okay? Um, but yeah, every day, I get to work on it, and it's thanks to a lot of the folks in the chat here. I think everybody here, for the most part, backed the Kickstarter. So, and I have had people reach out to me and ask me to like offer some of the stuff from the Kickstarter, and I don't know. I just don't think it's right to do that until everybody else gets their stuff, and especially if it's something that I limited only to the Kickstarter, it's going to only be to the Kickstarter. I'm not going to make something available to the general public that was Kickstarter exclusive. I think that that's a crummy thing to do, but that's what they were asking for. So, yeah. Hate to break the news to you, but that's not going to happen. If something was Kickstarter exclusive for me, it is Kickstarter exclusive. It will not show up on my table at a convention. Like in this case, they were asking about the ash can edition, which was like it was expensive, and I made it expensive. If there was only going to be 5 copies of this thing, I knew it was going to be pretty rare. And if I keep making Undersea Hero comics, even if it's not worth if if it's not worth a Wolverine first appearance or anything crazy like that, it's still if there's only 5 copies of something, it's got to be worth something, right? Yeah, I just want people on the Kickstarter to get what they ordered, and then if it's limited to just the Kickstarter, it's only going to be on the Kickstarter. I definitely see conventions and stores and stuff sell exclusives at times when they're not supposed to be, but like that's that's on them to decide. I will respectfully pass. This one's a little tough. These panels are a little tough for me because they're going to be small, so we have to try to have them um, be a little more simplified. Because if I try to draw, too much detail at this size, I'm going to lose my mind. And I just have to try to get the form right. So focusing on form over detail for these panels. And I'm not going to have, because there's a speech balloon here, 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 and then there's special effect sounds all throughout it. I'm not going to really have a background here. It'll probably be whatever this color is here, this wall, it's probably going to be that gold yellow color from the ship. So it'll be probably gold. I might darken it some, but yeah, I think the only thing that would be fair if anybody asked for it would be as if and I think people would support it, they wouldn't be mad, as if a retailer wanted to carry copies of the regular cover, which would be, that one's not limited to the Kickstarter. Um, if they just wanted shelf copies, I think that everyone would be cool with that. And then as long as they don't get them before anybody on the Kickstarter, I think that's okay. All that stuff will get shipped at the same time at our giant pizza party, Jonathan, whenever that is. And my friend Jenny offered to help, so that's very nice of her. We got plenty of time between now and then. And I was actually looking, I was shopping around for boxes. I'll do the Gemini mailers for just the book and the small rewards, but I was actually looking at like some nice little suitcase boxes for anybody that got artwork or anything larger. So that way it'll be real easy to just put them in, put the label on it, do the box doodle. Um, I once again had someone complaining about the box doodles. I was shocked. Every once in a while, I don't know. The box doodle, for those that don't know, is actually an old cartoonist tradition. Um, it's not anything I invented, but it is something that I always loved when I would get a piece of artwork from one of my friends or a colleague or just anyone. And there was just a little sketch on the envelope or whatever. Like it just is always just a nice little joyful thing that I always liked. He hits it with his left hand, so this has just hit right here. So he's like looking at this. And there might be like a little piece of debris falling off from the table. And then he hits it with his right hand. I watched a movie the other day. I saw the Willem Dafoe Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh biopic. uh, Gate of Eternity, whatever it was. It was. I know most people say Van Gogh. It was interesting. It was well shot. It was a very pretty movie. I know. I'm sorry. I don't have any um, Star Wars or anything genre fiction. Did I see any sci-fi movies? No, I don't think I did. Which is strange. I usually watch, some vintage sci-fi on Tubi or some old stuff. Is anybody watching anything good right now? Anything anybody would recommend? Mostly a movie guy, as you folks have noticed. I watch some TV shows, but mostly I like watching movies. It's Matt Magnan, voice acting extraordinaire, future icon. I'm sure people will be at conventions selling photo ops any day now. Uh, he'll be in the green room that the artists aren't allowed in. That's the one. Daniel says the new High Leader remake looks amazing. Oh no, man! I'll be in the like the Sidekicks Lounge if you're familiar with the Tick reference. The Sidekicks Lounge is around the side, and we all like sit on flipped over buckets. Michael says he watches mostly YouTube, tend to focus on comics history and art techniques. Yeah, I've watched quite a bit on YouTube of that sort of material. There's some really great stuff on there. There's you can watch Mobius paint, draw and paint, and it's uh it's pretty cool. Some great interviews with creators that aren't around anymore. Are we going to see you in March at Northeast Comic Con? I have not reached out to Northeast. That's Gary's show. Gary Summers, I think he runs that one. I haven't spoken to him in years actually. So that's another one where hey, maybe I'll just go goof off. I think St. Pierre has a table at that one like forever, basically. So maybe I'll call him up and be like, "Hey, do you need a booth helper?" And I'll just sit there and be a helper. Yeah, if Joe's there, maybe I'll just help him carry his stuff in. I can help him sell his work. Oh, cool. Matt says he will be there. I don't really know Keith. I know you and Joe know him much better than I do. I really only met him at a couple of shows, and at the last show, he just seemed very tired, so I didn't want to bother him. Daniel Dominguez says Henry Cavill is Highlander. I mean, I like the original Highlander, and I have a soft spot. I'm one of the few people that has like a soft spot for Highlander 2. Um, I don't know. Did they announce that Henry Cavill's playing Connor McLeod or a third McLeod? Because Duncan McLeod was around it for the TV show. Uh, Matt says we just met him as well. We are working on Daybreak. Yeah, I saw the announcement. Very cool. An official motion comic studio. I noodled around a little bit with that in Premiere. It is not easy. And then on this panel, see on this panel, he has just hit it with his one offhand, and then he hits it with his right hand, and then he hits it with both hands, and then he's just mashing at it like over and over again. This alarm that's going off, like when Daffy Duck would get mad, and he would just be like go into that manic state. That's the kind of cartooning you don't get to do much in a lot of superhero or comics people have heard of. I don't even know, Matt. Do you guys use Premiere or do you use Clip Studio? What do you use for your primary medium of choice for your motion comics? After Effects, maybe? Yeah, hey, we could talk about it, man. Like, obviously, I got to finish the book. That's the crux of it. That way, you have pictures to go from, or you could just decide if you hate it. I'm very interested to see what people make of this book when it comes out. I'm hoping that there's a love for cartoony wackiness, but I know that I know some of the folks that backed the Kickstarter's taste in comics pretty well, and this is not um, this is not the Watchmen. But it is in some ways has some connective tissue in that it is I honestly believe that the Watchmen wouldn't be what it is without a deep appreciation for superhero comics by the creators. So it does have that connective tissue. In this panel, like it's just fists, like and motion lines, and then you'll see like the explosions from when he hits the uh, console, and then you'll have sound effects. So like, there's really not going to be a ton of line art in here. It's basically going to be like a floating angry head and fists. So as you can see, this is a dense page. I mean, it's got what, 11 panels? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 11 panels. And the reason, and this is just a quick storytelling thing, that it's not just a 12 panel grid is because the panels don't all have the same amount of emphasis, time, data. Like in a 12 panel grid, you're using basically a static camera or aperture and giving the same value to each item. So In this case, it is a different value to each narrative item. Measuring and arranging narrative value. That is something that, like, I always thought Howard Chaykin was just a master at organizing narrative value. All right, we're going to come back to this first panel. And we'll get our regular pencil out here. We'll start to fill in some of these gaps. Like I said, we don't want too much detail, because when this reproduces, it's going to be 60% of this, so 40% smaller. So it'll be about yay big on the page. I would like to have a character at some point who, like, has the punch of our. Do we have Simpsons fans in the audience? I'm going to make a Simpsons reference. So, like, when Mr. Burns is trying to, like, murder one of the board members of his own company, he's like, he's barely moving this baseball bat, and it's like barely touching, and in no way at all hurting or even really annoying the person he's supposedly trying to kill. And he's just incapable of the amount of strength to hurt someone. I would like to have a character who's like big and strong looking, but that's their thing. That's the joke. Kernuckle says, "Yo, page looking nice. Thank you." Yeah, we're getting some kinetic energy, some cartooning in there, so that when I go back with the inking, it'll hopefully have a nice bouncy line to it. And since I have that new brush tip on my brush pen, it should be a nice sharp line. And this page actually finishes out the I don't think we go to the Undersea casino. No, we go to the casino. Next is a Crackus page, actually, after this. So we get to see the inside of the Undersea casino, Lord Crackus at the craps tables. The page after that, I'm really proud of the layout on. I think that that's one of the best pages I've ever designed, the one after the next one. So from a storytelling standpoint, from a dynamic eye appeal standpoint, I think it's one of the best pages I've ever designed. We'll see if I screw up the execution, which is always possible, but it's starting off from a good idea. Yeah, I spent most of my drawing time this past weekend finishing that pinup that you guys saw. We are starting to look for a new cat. Hey, Brian. Hello, Applebee's, whichever store you're in. Um, since Brian's here and he's one of the big Undersea Hero supporters, I'll show the. All right, Mike, I'll try to do the quick reset. Hold on, let's see if that helps. Hopefully that's better. I can see the speed of the internet and the bit rate and everything, and it all looks good. So I don't know why it's cutting out. There's no updates going on, no weird things. So, but yeah, Brian, here's the finished inked pinup piece. So but hopefully that's better after the reset. Oh, thanks. It's a fun little gag to do sometimes. I try not to do it too often. I used to break panel borders too often when I was younger in an attempt to try to be interesting. And I would lose some clarity. And when I pull back, I try to make it like an effective use when I do it now. And yes, I did say do. And these are like tiny little drawings, so forgive some of the crudeness, but when it's reproduced, you'll hopefully not even notice when you're looking at something like the size of like two postage stamps stacked on top of each other. That's 9:15. We've been on for about an hour and 14 minutes. Gonna probably stay on for about 15 more minutes, so I have to be up bright and early tomorrow. It was 5:30 wake up, so come early. Actually, I think what we should do here is we have the speech bubble that's going to be here. Is we probably should add a little bit of extra cartoon language, like he's a little surprised. see if we can make this face work. One of the things that I really enjoy is when I am working on a facial expression and it pushes the uh, shape of the skull and the anatomy in a direction where I have to figure out something new. And that's exactly what's going on right here, where because this is such a warped, frowny face, that I actually think that the muscles of the edges of his mouth would extend beyond his skull. So I think that those are going to stick out a little bit. We use the ponytail actually is to convey our emotion, like as one of our elements. That's one of the reasons I put it on there. I designed it that way so that it looks like his head's coming forward. Same thing with those little tendrils on the front of his head, like that. And then we're going to have a motion line that comes from almost the top of the panel, right here, all the way down to where this fist is. Just to show how far it travels and how fast. It's going to come all the way down like this. We'll bend the shoulder pad a little bit downward so that it has a enhanced sense of weight. And then we actually turn the fist a little bit. So like as it comes down, it's not coming straight down. It actually has an arc to it. So like this part of the fist, right, the hand right here, that's covered in lead, is hitting the table at an angle to try to add a little bit more oomph to the punch. See how it curves? And look, there are a million people who draw differently and use different tricks. These are just ones that I find that I really like using, especially for different ways of conveying motion, which I think is, one of the great challenges of action adventure comic book storytelling. As much as I love certain classic illustrative creators and like realistic, not as exciting. There's not as much movement. Give me like the second generation Jack Kirby stuff any day, where there's just so much movement. And part of the excitement that I get out of his work is that some of it is drawn in a way that is not correct, and it enhances and alters the feel of the motion and the figure, and it's believable though, and it's that line of believability that I'm always trying to walk. Body language, facial expressions, exaggerations, that's where I find my challenges and enjoyment, and trying to find ways to add those good fundamentals in ways that I hadn't thought of before, using different skull structure shorthands and different ways of making it interesting. New ways, trying to think of new ways. Like in one of my favorite films, The Jerk, new wine. Get rid of this old vintage wine. We need new wine. Believability over realism. That's the line I like to draw. Obviously, this necklace is going to like go flying a little bit, so it's going to be a little chaotic. And then there's some foreshortening here where this overlaps, so you're not going to see the whole bicep. You're not going to see the whole trapezius or the whole tricep. That's going to be hidden. And then here is going to be the hand, and then the meat of it. You know, an illustrative artist that used a lot of motion lines, if you go back and look, and Neil Adams. If you look at Neil Adams, he used a lot of that cartoon language, even with his illustrative vintage style that everybody covets as, you know, his peak. You know what? It's 9:25. Rather than starting the next panel, I'm gonna call it a night. You know, you can see where we started. There's going to be the motion of the correlator. You'll see like a ghost image of his face and then swinging back as his head turns. Motion lines of the wham. And then you'll see these two. One fist punches the thing, and then two fists, and then like just wave of fist, and then tired and angry. So, but I'll keep working on stuff, and yeah, next week, Wednesday at 8 o'clock. There's our prelim. There's our finished piece. And I hope everyone has a lovely week and lovely weekend. And thanks everybody for popping in. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Good night, everybody.